Welcome to the Speaking Deacon Show. Here on this Tuesday, I'm recording this, so we'll go over some recaps and some games from this past week. Over the weekend, I'm going to give you my projection. I'm going to tell you how I did in my last projection. We're going to take it, we're going to recap, and then we'll go to the Western Carolina preview for Wake Forest this Saturday. And so we will start off by looking at the other games over the weekend. We'll start off with Boston College. That was a road test in Michigan. Boston College, they uh, they have a road test in Michigan State on September 6th that looms. But Labor Day weekend is about tuning up and proving Bill O'Brien's Eagles can fly north with grit. Bill O'Brien's Eagles look solid after beating Fordham. So they beat Fordham 66-10. That was quite a blowout, wasn't it? 66-10. And Florida State was probably the surprise team of the weekend. They beat Alabama 31-17. Jordan Travis lit the fuse. Norval's crew was baptized in Tide. Sigma title was the gospel according to Norval. And the crowd went wild after beating Alabama. So was Alabama that bad? Was Florida State that good? Or was it was just a game where Florida State played really, really well? But we'll see down the road. And also, no surprise here, Miami beat Notre Dame 27-24. It was a Sunday night thriller. Swagger resurrected. Sunday Night Confessions, and the Canes ain't dead. So we got to watch for Miami this year. Then we got the same old familiar team, Virginia Tech, who lost to South Carolina 24-11. Familiar Blues. Hokies got humbled. No hokey pokey in the dome. They had to come back to Blacksburg, trying to figure out where they go next because they got Vanderbilt next. Then we got North Carolina, who lost to TCU 48-14 yesterday. Belichick got out-coached, outclassed, and outpaced. And the Sigma title here is Chapel Hill, or Chapel Bill, got baptized in Horn Frog Fire. Chapel Hill got baptized in Horn Frog Fire. And it was just a total meltdown in Chapel Hill. And if you see my little cartoon on X, formerly Twitter, you'll see it was a meltdown right there in Chapel Hill. Everybody left. The meltdown. The Tar Heels players just quit. And it was just a total. It seemed like they just started running. They wanted to get off the field fast. So did Bill Belichick. And move on to the next game against Charlotte. Then we got North Carolina State, which we expect a little bit better out of State, but not quite better, but a little bit. They held on to beat East Carolina 24-17 after getting swamped last year in the bowl. East Carolina built a 7, then held on with a red zone stand. The title was fourth down facing Raleigh. Didn't beat Elon as expected, 45-10. So let's move back to Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick football debut in North Carolina was hyped like a Southern revival. Sold out Kansas Stadium. Michael Jordan in the box, and a top 10 transfer class led by Joe Lopez, the quarterback. But the sermon ended early. Yes, it did. And you know what the final score was? Tar Heels struck first for a touchdown. But then the Horned Frogs unleashed a 41 unanswered points. Trevon Barnes broke the game open with a 75-yard touchdown run on the first play of the second half, and TCU's defense added 2 scoops and scored touchdown to Coyotes. So the Belichick breakdown was the one UNC fundamentals crumbled, missed tackles, dropped passes, botched punts, and snaps. Gio Lopez was benched for Max Johnson. Well, actually, he got a little banged up, so we don't know whether he'll return or who's going to play when they go to Charlotte. But he led a late scoring drive, but the damage was done already. It was already too late for Max Johnson, but at least he did get some playing time, right? TCU racked up over 500 yards of offense and dominated every single phase. So what more do you want? What more do you want? So the other game was LSU 17, Clemson 10. Yes, I did pick Clemson, but I also picked LSU. It was at the first thinking that maybe LSU was going to beat them. So I didn't think Clemson had it to beat them, which I was right. I should have stuck with LSU. So I was kind of 50-50 on that one, so I kind of went with Clemson. It was sort of a toss-up, which it was. Clemson made some mistakes that cost them. First season opener win under Brian Kelly after 3 straight week 1 losses. Kelly finally got his Tigers rolling. And it wasn't the Clemson, it was the LSU Tigers. And it was the Death Valley of Louisiana, not the one in South Carolina. And not a cupcake. This was a top 10 showdown in hostile territory. Garrett Newsmere's redemption arc at the 5th-year quarterback with 20 and 42 for 231 yards. They clutched 7-yard touchdown tight end Trey Green and gave LSU the lead. For good, he looked poised, especially in the second half. Defense wins tonight. LSU's revamped defense led by the Harold Perkins and Whit Weeks had Cade Kubrick and Clemson offense to just 212 total yards. Wow. And Clemson converted only 3 points off 2 LSU fumbles. Bend but don't break. That was kind of like Wake Forest's day, wasn't it? It gets off the bend but not break. But they played good defense at time, but it was bend but not break. But we'll move on to Wake later on. Damian Ramis nailed a career-long 52-yard field goal. Cade Durham punched in a third-quarter touchdown to tie. Trey Green posted up like a power forward for the go-ahead score. So what does it mean for LSU season? Momentum shift. Momentum. It shifts to momentum. Well, can LSU make it all the way to the playoffs? We'll see. Momentum shift this win snapped the opener curse and gave LSU a huge confidence boost. And they outgained Clemson by over 100 yards and showed they can win ugly on the road too. FBI has bumped ESPN Football Power Index, nudged and LSU from 12th to 11th. That ain't bad. They moved the needle. It's not a huge leap, but it reflects solid respect, right? So next week's game versus Louisiana Tech won't move the needle, but week 3 of Florida could be a playoff-shaping moment. Playoff implications, LSU now has a signature win on his resume. Clemson. If a deep SEC slate ahead, they got a real shot to climb into the top 10 and make noise in the new 12-team playoff, college football playoff. So We'll move on. So what does it, Brian Kelly's credibility also, but to add this, Brian Kelly's credibility, this win quiets doubters and sets the tone for a mature, battle-tested roster. And LSU's depth, a skilled position, defensive strength could carry them far if they stay healthy. So, so for Florida State, so what does it mean for Florida State after beating Alabama? A top 10 upset, ACC momentum. Alabama came in ranked number 8 in favor by 2 touchdowns. FSU flipped the script and now owns one of the biggest, stabest wins. Notable's SEC mastery, that's 5 non-conference SEC wins for Mike Noble since 2016. Second most in the country. He's not just building a team, he's building a legacy. Castellanos' era begins if this is the floor. The Steelers might be a playoff fire. His poise, mobility, and command turns a 2-10 team into a week 1 giant slayer. Kind of like what Georgia Tech did to Florida State, right? It's an Alabama slide. It's the first back-to-back losses since 2013. First non-conference road loss since 2003. First season opening loss since 2001. And the Tide didn't just lose, they got mythalized. So we'll see where that game goes. How about the Miami game? Miami 27, Notre Dame 24. Carson Beck's South Beach debut. The Georgia transfer threw for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a 28-yard strike to Tony in his second quarter and a 20-yard dart to C. Daniels just before halftime. He was calm, poised, composed, and ready to lead a playoff push. Second quarter surge, Miami dropped 14 points in the second quarter and added 7 more in the third. Clutch kicking, C. Davis nailed 2 field goals in the fourth quarter, one for 38 yards and another for 47 to keep Miami ahead. About the defensive part, Miami's defense bent but didn't break. They gave up 17 fourth quarter points, but they stuffed Notre Dame key downs and kept C.J. Carr from finding rhythm until it was too late. So what does that mean for the Hurricanes? In top 10 validation, Miami entered the rankings number 10, Notre Dame number 6. This win flips the narrative and pulled Miami in the playoff conversation early. And also, going back to Alabama, expect them to maybe fall out of the top 25. From 8th to out, there's a lot of voters out there now that's calling for Alabama. We'll see how the voting goes and how I haven't seen the latest, if the latest AP top 25. I haven't seen that yet. I haven't looked at it. I'm going to look at it. And I'll let you know on X what I think. But what it means, crystal ball culture shifts. This wasn't just talent, it was out toughness. Miami held off a blue blood rally and showed they can finish games, not just start fast. So the ACC realignment with FSU beating Alabama and Clemson, following LSU, Miami's win over Notre Dame might be the most balanced complete performance in week 1. The Hurricanes are no longer chasing, they're leading. How about the game between Wake Forest and Kennesaw State? We was looking for ways to do a little bit better than that. Robbie Ashford, Durham, the Auburn transfer, started the Demon Deacons debut with a 5-yard touchdown coming on the opening drive. Then spent the rest of the dodging sacks, praying for field goals, and he threw for 218 yards and rushed for 42, but the offense stalled after the first quarter. Connor Calvin's clutch toe, his 22-year field goal in the third quarter gave Wake the lead for good. looked flashy, but the sequence was saving. But Kennesaw State had grit. The Owls outgained Wake in the second half, and and uh, and the Deacons and freshman quarterback for the Owls, Dexter Williams, threw for 149 yards and ran for 44, most ever by TSU quarterback in a debut. So the defensive bark was Wake's defense bent but didn't break. That was the theme in the song for most of the teams. They bent but didn't break. Those that won, and they gave up 307 total yards, but held firm in the fourth quarter. No turnovers, no sacks, but just enough to stop survive. So what does it mean for Wake Forest? And this, after losing Desmond Claiborne for the rest of that game, he's due to be back for Saturday. But how many reps he'll get Saturday will depend on how his injury is going. If he can play more, do less, but he don't need to probably. But anyway, the debut survived and advanced. The former Washington State coach gets the W, but this was no ACC flex. The offense sputtered, like I said. The line struggled, and the Deacons looked vulnerable against a team making its FBS debut. Offensive identity crisis, yeah, they got to find their identity. And I'll take a quote from Robert Ashford at the post-game comments that he said, if they keep playing like that, they won't win any games. They're going to have to get better. Exactly. But Kennesaw State's moral victory is the Owls were supposed to get steamrolled. Instead, they nearly baptized Winston-Salem with a road upset. And their defense posted 4 sacks and 7 tackles for losses. Segment-worthy bark from a supposed underdog. Yeah. So this is the ball game. The ball game is at Wake Forest. And I'm going to give you my Speaking Deacon segment preview for the Western Carolina. As soon as I give you my picks for next week. So I'm giving you my picks for next week. So we already into 17 minutes and a half. So I will give you my picks right now. So here are my big-time ACC picks for week 2. Here's the breakdown. So Louisville will be taking on James Madison. My pick is Louisville. From Dukes to Dust, Guards keep the crown in Kentucky. And Pitt versus Central Michigan. Pitt, Chippewa chips away, but Pete still holds. SMU versus Baylor. My pick is SMU. Mustang Gallop past the Baptist Bark. How about this game? Virginia versus NC State. Now, they got NC State favored, but I just don't believe that North Carolina State will win this one. Virginia seems to be rolling. They looked really, really good against Fordham. North Carolina State did not look good against East Carolina. So the Cavaliers, I think, will carve it home him and Raleigh's shadow. How about Florida State versus East Texas A&M? I'm picking FSU in this one. Seminoles stomped the mystery callers into myth. Then we got Illinois versus Duke. Duke won over Elon, but Illinois is no Elon. So I'm picking Illinois. Big Ten boozers silence the Durham sermon. Syracuse versus UConn. Tennessee got a little smacked against Tennessee, but Syracuse is going to bounce back in the dome. Orange defend the dome barely, but they'll win. Wake Forest versus Western Carolina. I think the Deacs will dance past Catamounts in Winston-Salem Chapel. I think Wake Forest will find a way to get it together to prove that last week was a fluke that they're better than 10-9. How about Georgia Tech versus Gardner Webb? I'm picking Georgia Tech. Tech has swarmed the Bulldogs into barbecue. Then we got Clemson versus Troy. Clemson, Tigers roar, Trojans retreat. Cal versus Texas Southern. Cal versus Texas Southern. I'm picking Cal. They're looking really good after their win over Oregon State. Golden Bears feast on Lone Star leftovers. How about Miami versus Bethune Cookman? I'm picking, I'm picking Miami. Miami over the Canes, cruise past Cookman Storm. They got to. UNC versus Charlotte. I think UNC will bounce back because Charlotte ain't no TCU. Tar Heels tap dance through Queen City fog. They'll get their rhythm. About Michigan State versus Boston College. I'm picking MSU. Spartans slice through Chestnut Hill confusion. Boston College looked good, but against who? It wasn't a whole lot to look forward to. They scored against the FCS team, Fordham. Wow. How about Virginia Tech versus Vanderbilt? This is going to be a good one. Last year, Virginia Tech barely got by. Well, actually, Vanderbilt beat Virginia Tech last year. So it was a close game, but Vanderbilt came back to beat Virginia Tech. This year, Virginia Tech looks similar, but this time I think they'll correct the mistakes. And they're playing in Lane Stadium, and it's hard to beat someone in Lane Stadium. Last year they got beat in Nashville, so that's going to be the difference. So that's why I'm picking Virginia Tech. I think the Hokies howl, and Lane Stadium, Pavia's magic runs dry. Then our last pick, BYU versus Stanford. Well, I'm sorry, Stanford, but you're our last place team. You'll go 0-2 after Saturday. BYU will climb past the Cardinal Calm. So that is my pick. For I didn't show you I didn't even show it to you, but I'll go back over it again. As you see, I want you to see this. A big time AC picks, week 2 breakdown. You see what I got here. Illinois. We got Louisville, Pitt, SMU, Virginia, FSU, Illinois, Syracuse, Wake, Georgia Tech, Clemson, Cal, Miami, UNC, MSU, Virginia Tech, and BYU winning. I was 13-4 in my picks, losing to Clemson, Florida State, Cal, and not what the other one was, and Stanford game. So now we'll move on to the Speaking Deacon segment preview for Western Carolina. All right, let's move on to the Speaking segment preview. Wake Forest versus Western Carolina in Winston-Salem on this Saturday on September 6th on ESPN Plus. Wake Forest is searching for bark after a barely win. Last week escape, Wake squeaked past Kennesaw State 10-9 in a game that felt more like a haunted house than a football opener. Bobby Ashby showed flashes, but the offense stalled with 7 straight drives. Jake Dicker's debut was technically a win, but spiritually it was a warning. Offensive identity crisis. The slow mess is gone, replaced by a power spread under OC Rob Ezell, but so far it's more sputter than spread. Devon Claiborne is the bell cow, but the offensive line needs to open lanes. Oh, this season is going to be a long sermon. And they're also going to have to be able to use other running backs. Maybe Tate Carney, maybe some other backs that needs to get playing time. The key players to watch is Desmond Claiborne, running back, 1,000-yard rusher last year, needs to carry the load. Robbie Ashford, quarterback, dual threat potential, but needs rhythm and protection. You got to have the offensive line to protect them more. Need to do the duties, communicate, and all that stuff. Nick Anderson, senior safety defensive anchor, expect him to bark early. How about Western Carolina? Hungry and unafraid. FCS fired. The Catamounts lost their opener, but played a fast-paced offensive and a chip on their shoulder. They're not just showing up; they're holding a deadline. Matchup edge: Wake Forest pass defense allowed 70% completion last season, for the worst in the nation. If Western Carolina's quarterback can stay upright, they'll test the secondary early. How about the sick mistakes and prediction for Wake? This is a must clean up game, and if the DEACS struggle again, the ACC slate becomes a gauntlet. A convincing win here sets the tone for NC State next week. And for Western Carolina, a close game or an upset would be segment gold for the Catamounts. They've got nothing to lose and everything to prove. So big time segment setup from mess to mess. Can the DEACS find their bark before the pack pounces? Or Claiborne carries the sermon? Afterwards finds the rhythm and Dicker dodges a second straight segment roast. We'll find all that out next week. And then I'll speak about that and all the other games that are coming up. And thank you for, and I hope you watch this thing and tell other people about the Speaking Deacon show. So this is the second edition of the Speaking Deacon show in the season. So let everyone know about the Speaking Deacon show with David Lawson. You can also find me on all social medias as the American Hoochie Man or David Lawson, whatever you see me on all the social medias. So just find me and see, and this will be posted here on YouTube and also shared on X and Facebook. So this will be shared on TikTok. So have a great and awesome week. And as always, go DEACS.